Hi everyone, welcome to our group's presentation on the Ford Pinto scandal. The Ford Pinto was a compact car that was made by the Ford Motor Company, and this particular car was actually produced and sold in the 1970s. Each car sold for roughly $2,000, which is around $13,000 today. During this time, Ford Motors' competition with other car companies were extremely high, and one of their main competitors was Volkswagen. I believe Volkswagen had the little sport coupers that are really old, like Kirby, during this time, so that caused a intense competition between the two companies. And after some calculations, Ford found that if they rushed production, then they could produce large enough quantities that would allow for lower prices, and that would allow them to be able to compete easier for market shares. However, not long after they released the Ford Pinto models to the public for purchase, the cars started getting a bad reputation for catching on fire during accidents. Most of these accidents involved the Ford Pinto being rear-ended or hit behind, and then it would go up in flames. So after many deaths and injuries, an investigation was conducted to look into why this was occurring and why was it occurring so often. And in this investigation, it provided insight on the unethical decisions that Ford Motors were making and their justifications for following through with them. So the fires were occurring or caused because the location of where the Pinto's gas tank was. So in the design layout, the gas tank was actually in a position that made it very easy to be punctured if the Pinto was hit from the rear. And Ford chose to put this tank there to optimize the amount of trunk space that the Pinto would have. However, during further investigation, it was uncovered that Ford Motors actually knew the risk involved with the design layout and used a mathematical equation that included a forecast of amount of deaths and injuries that Ford believed would happen from the fires compared to the additional cost it would cost them to fix the problem. So here's the kicker. It was calculated that Ford would have to spend about $11 per car to fix the problem. And I know what you're probably thinking. $11 is not a lot of money at all. And you're right. But to be fair, $11 in 1970 is equivalent to $73.30 today. So that's about how much they would cost per car if it was today. Still not much money, but their final calculations supported keeping the design and continuing the rush production so that they can meet their market share. It was also uncovered that Ford Motors not only decided to not spend the additional money to make the car safer for the general public, but they also altered the crash test cars so that they would not need to delay releasing cars into the market. So with that being said, Ford not only knew the chances of cars catching on fire, but they also were 100% positive that their cars would be durable during a collision of any kind. So once the news broke about the Ford's decisions and unethical practices, the company was forced to make a change, which is fair. And this is where the scandal begins. And this is also where our wonderful project begins. So with this little information that I've provided and a little bit of background, I do want to shift your focus to Becca as she dives deeper into why Ford made these unethical decisions or certain decisions and what their specific justifications were to sticking to it. Thank you.